Hey, this is Sarah with Strictly Sickly. We are on episode 7, and it is our 4th installment of Significant Other. So today we will have Brad and Kristen on the show.
Howdy.
Hi.
So we're going to talk to Brad about, well, first off, dating people with chronic illnesses, and then his own mental health, situation.
Okay.
So, how many women have you dated with chronic illnesses?
Probably, I'd say like 5 or 6 at this point. It seems habitual.
So, do you have some sort of weird fetish?
Do you only do it with girls with like physical pain or all the just?
I've run the gamut of mental illness to physical illness, I guess. I don't think it's that I necessarily have like a fetish for it or anything. It's I guess that's the kind of personality that kind of connects with my personality, because I have my own set of kind of like issues, and I'm kind of needy, but I'm also kind of like I like taking care of people, I guess. So those are kind of when I'm talking with some, and it's not something like I'm like consciously looking for, or somebody like says to me like, oh, I need somebody to take care of me. But I guess that's just the people that have like a certain personality type that I seem drawn to tend to end up being sick.
And people more likely to understand what you're going through.
Right, I guess since they have their own problems, they're more accepting of my issues.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something I kind of fall into. And I thought something was wrong for a little while, because like I wouldn't know they were sick, and a lot of times they wouldn't even know they were chronically ill or whatever until we'd like been together a while, and then it turned out, oh, hey, there's like this thing wrong or whatever. So it's just kind of weird how that came about.
Like how I thought I was contagious for a few years because everyone I met had chronic illnesses.
That, and I guess when you stop dating one person and you go to date another person, it's not like you really meet, like at our age, just like new random people. It's usually like another friend or a friend of a friend of the same circle,
and chronically ill people move in herds.
Yeah, you guys seem to kind of like flock together, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start in the Wayback Machine. You were married for how long?
I was married for 10 years. I got married.
I still win.
Let's see. I got married June 4th, 2004. And I was married for 10 years before we got divorced.
And when did you realize that she was chronically ill, and what did she have?
The thing is when we knew she was ill when we were together, but there wasn't a name for it yet. Like, we didn't realize that she was chronically ill. Like, we knew there were some problems, but there wasn't a name on it. And actually, I'm pretty sure she has PCOS, endometriosis, and I know she's hyperglycemic. But back when we were first together, and I'm talking like when we were teenagers and we first met, I don't think there was a lot known about PCOS at the time. Like, I'd never heard of it until I met you guys after.
Well, good evening, Hazel from the UK.
Howdy. After we were divorced, it was the first time I heard about PCOS, and after I heard about what it was, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly, it fits perfectly with what, because she anytime she was going through her cycle, her periods or whatever, it was just rough. It was horrible. Like, it was bad, where it was like, okay, I'm going to stay home from work because you're not going to be able to get out of bed, and I'm just going to hold a hot pad on your stomach all day and not ask you to do anything, because it was that bad. Of course, we had a couple of miscarriages, which were pretty horrible, which we'll probably get into later. And I don't want to say she had but she definitely had issues with like she had some of the same depression issues that I have, things like that.
Well,
She
and
dealt
I
with
mean,
them better
just-
and differently.
Just by having PCOS or endometriosis, most of those women do have mental health issues because it does affect your hormones too.
Well, a lot of it a lot of it could have been due to me in dealing with my issues.
I can see how you'd make someone crazy.
Yeah.
I'm joking mostly when I pick on him.
There
by
was
the
a lot
way.
going on, and I just want to put it out there, especially because she might watch this at some point. My ex-wife is a great person. Like, we don't talk a lot anymore, but we're still friends. Like, we didn't part on bad circumstances. She's a great person. She's wonderful. She's loving, all that. Like, I don't have anything bad to say about it. Everything that happened between us that kind of went towards getting divorced was just circumstances in our life, and a lot of that was actually caused by both of our illnesses, actually, which is, I know, is going to be like one of the questions later. And I'll probably be one of the only people on this set of interviews to say, no, there is definitely a walking away point, and I know exactly where ours was.
Yeah, because our next question is, how did her illnesses affect your marriage?
Well, our illnesses affected our marriage equally. The way her illnesses affected.
Well, I'll say let's start with the physical stuff, and then both of y'all's mental health stuff.
Well, the way her physical illness affected our marriage is it would put a strain because, I was constantly put in a position where I would have to be sort of like a caretaker or whatever, like I said, when she went through her cycle or whatever, it was so bad. It was where, okay, I'm going to take off of work or whatever. It caused a strain because sometimes she couldn't work, which would hurt us in the income department. It was never, and I say that, but it was never like to the degree that you guys have talked about on the show before. Like she was never so bad that she couldn't work. And I think what it was is she was just healthy enough to be able to force herself to do that all the way up until the point where she couldn't mentally handle it anymore. But it caused a lot of fights and a lot of arguing because unlike you guys, where you have some diagnoses,
We have a name for it.
Yeah.
and your spouses know you're sick. I didn't know that at the time. Like, if she was like lethargic or feeling bad, I would actually think, oh, she's being lazy and she just doesn't want to do stuff. Or, and to the same degree, when I was having like depression and things like that, she would think the same of us. Like, we had no idea what was going on with each other. And so we were both blaming each other for each other's illnesses instead of recognizing that
Because y'all were
ill.
really young when y'all got married, right?
18.
Yeah.
I had just turned 20, or I was about to turn 21. No, I had just turned 21 the year before when we got married, but we started dating when I turned 18 years old.
Want to ask the next one, Miss Kristen?
Oh, okay.
You can really just pick one from the first set.
Yeah. Well, the next question on there was if you could change any way that the relationship with your ex-wife went due to the health problems, what would you change? Would you communicate more, or?
You mean like would I make her not sit, or
Well, no.
or would I deal with it differently?
About your
absolutely.
behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have educated myself more about what was going on with me and educated myself more about what was going on with her instead of playing the blame game back and forth. I wish I had really pulled my head out of my own ass, because back then I was a different person back then. I was a lot more selfish. I was a lot more wrapped up in what was going on with me. I had a lot going on in my life with my own mental illness, and I had a hard time seeing past all that. I wish I had asked more questions and actually believed the answers better. I wish I had been, I always tried to be supportive. It's not like I was just sitting around. I tried, but I didn't succeed. Like there's a difference. And I wish I had done a better job of that. I would probably actually still be married today had I been a more understanding husband. If I had empathized more with what was going on and figured out ways to deal with the problem instead of trying to fix the problem. Because maybe it's a man thing, but it's definitely a thing for me. But if you tell me like you're sick or you're broken or something, my response as a man is going to be, I'm going to take you to the doctor and they can fix it. The doctor can fix anything. And I've only learned in the past, 5-6 years, no, the doctor can't fix
anything,
much
if they
less
even know
everything.
what they're talking about.
And I wish I had understood that and learned how to deal with it. But I was dealing with so much of my own BS in my own head that it wasn't a good match. Like, I was not the person to help her through that, and she's found somebody that is able to do that, and I'm glad, because that she'll survive it now. But at the time, I was not in a place where I could do that, and it ultimately made me a bad husband. So yeah, if I could change that, I would like to be a better husband. But I don't dwell and feel guilty about it. Because
you shouldn't. You didn't know any better.
I did for a long time, and that made my depression and all that worse.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we both did selfish things to each other, and not because we were trying to, just because we started off as kids and we didn't know how to deal with it. So it was rough.
And even if you did know then what you know now, based on who you were at the time, even if you had a diagnosis or an answer, would it really have made that much of a difference on how you treated each other?
I think it would, because I'm not like crass. Like, I've always been like a caring person. I care about others above myself. And if there had been a name or somebody had said, hey, this is a real thing, this is what's going on, and she's not going to get better, I've always been one to rise to a challenge. I would have said, oh shit, I've been an asshole. and
let's do something.
Right, and I would have stepped up to the plate, but that option never presented itself. So, I can theorize that I would do that, but do I know? Do I know for sure? No, I could have screwed that up too. Hell, I screwed up asking her to marry me, to be honest. So,
well, we were wondering, you're talking about always being a sympathetic person toward that sort of thing. Your mom was chronically ill when you were growing up, right?
Yeah, and that's another case of, like, I didn't see it at the time or understand it at the time. So as a kid and a young adult, I spent a lot of time being really angry about the fact that my mom was kind of absent, because she suffered with a lot of, and I know now because I suffer with a lot of it. I think it's genetic, hereditary. Mm-hmm. But she suffered with depression, anxiety. She didn't have the RA when I was growing up. That wasn't an issue. That came later. But for a lot of the time that she was around, and this is how I felt. When I say it's how I felt, it means this was a feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a fact. Mm-hmm. Just to differentiate, it's a perception thing. But when I was a young adult, I was very angry a lot of the time, because I felt like when my mom was there, she slept through a lot of my life. And then when her and my dad got divorced, I felt like I was abandoned for a lot of it. And so I felt like I had to do a lot of growing up really early. So until I said that just now, that might have caused some of my resentment for some of that, like, chronic illness stuff. And then I don't think I came to grips with it until I realized that I was actually struggling with a lot of those same issues. I just dealt with them differently.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think people, they see chronic physical illness and they put a name to it. But I don't think chronic mental illness gets the same amount of awareness. And chronic physical illness gets so little awareness that it makes me think that chronic mental health awareness gets just like an infinitesimal
to a point
amount.
That the mental health thing, talking about it, is just a stigma or whatever. You're not allowed to talk about it in public, or so mental health things are. Maybe
it's because of the quality of friends I'm with now, or maybe it's because I'm used to you guys. I don't feel that way as much anymore, but definitely like when I was in school, or early years, before I was married, I definitely couldn't have said, I'm depressed, or I have anxiety, or problems concentrating, or when I go into crowds, I don't feel comfortable and I don't know how to deal with it. Like those wouldn't be things that I could have told my friends at that time, and anyone really understood. And so I did a lot of compensating. Like I did a lot of partying. I did the exact opposite. So I have anxiety about like crowds and stuff like that, but I'm a really good public speaker and things like that because the way I dealt with that is I doubled down.
You're not gonna get me today.
Yeah, and so I got into like acting and being in a rock band and doing plays and show choir and being an active, things like that. And so I got used to being the center of attention, and I thought that was helping me get over that anxiety, but really what it was doing is I was pushing that anxiety down and getting really good at pretending to be human. So it's kind of, I guess it kind of makes me a psychopath.
Just a little.
So how do you cope with not being able to fix the people you're with?
I don't. That is rough. It's really frustrating because my personality is if something's broke, I fix it. I'm a real technical person. I mean, we've been around each other enough that, if you tell me your car's not working, it frustrates the hell out of you because, I want to go get the part and put it in there and fix it. If the computer's not working, I go and I fix it. And to me, people are the same way. So, if you tell me like you're not having a good day, my response is well, what can I do to make your day better? And nothing. And like you may not have an answer for that because there may be nothing that can make your day better. You just want to whine about it, and I know that's the thing you're supposed to be able to do, but it doesn't compute, and I can't cope with it. Like it doesn't work. I mean, I can tell myself that, okay, I'm just going to be there for you today, Kristen, but in the back of my head, I'm like, God, she's going to be mad at me if I don't bring her soup or what med do you need? What if I give you some extra Percocet today? Or what if do you want to go to the doctor? Should I take you to the ER now? No, I'm just gonna sit here and slowly die. And I don't know. I don't cope with it very well, and it's pretty rough on my psyche, actually.
You think that affects the relationships too? The fact that you can't really cope, and then they kind of got to deal with your trying to fix it attitude.
Yeah. So, without going into too many details, I've had a lot of breakups over, the whole not computing thing gets me wound up, and then, like, my whole problem is I can't process emotion for crap, and so, that causes this big, like, circular conflict, and then, people break up with me. So, so the longest anybody's lasted on that ride has been 10 years. That's the record so far.
I mean, do you think you'd ever get married again?
Legally? No. I mean, I'm not.
I think that's the only way to get married at this point in time is
I
common law.
I would never go like before a judge or whatever and sign papers and all that crap because that's all a bunch of taxes or whatever. I'm not afraid to commit to people, a singular person or whatever, but my lifestyle's changed since I was married. I mean, just to put it bluntly, I'm in more of an open type relationship or whatever because I think a lot of what was wrong with me before was I really didn't know a whole lot about myself. I thought the world worked one specific way, because that's kind of what was put in front of me when I was raised. Not like I was brainwashed, but just because that was what the norm was. And so it had never really occurred to me that there was another way for me. And then after my divorce, I kind of went out. Like so I'm basically in an open relationship, but I don't really exercise that very much. I'm fine with being with just one person or whatever, but I'm not opposed to multiple people, and I don't know, marriage just gets kind of tricky there. But but because I think that way, I would never be mean enough to legally lock somebody to me anymore. I don't think that would be right. Like, I definitely want to give somebody an out, because if I ever become too much for them or they become too much for me, that doesn't mean we have to stop loving each other, but, you know, you shouldn't be, like, legally bound to me or whatever. So, like, if by getting married again you mean, would I, you know, do some kind of, like, ceremony and make somebody feel special and do, like, vows or something like that and make promises to somebody again, yeah, I would definitely do that, and I would mean it. But I wouldn't make anybody sign a piece of paper saying that, hey, you are, like, legally bound to me anymore, because the only purpose that serves for me anymore is tax reasons, which isn't even that big of a write-off anymore. And I'm not super religious, so I don't care about, you know,
fulfilling the roles or whatever.
Yeah. So I would take vows with somebody and maybe have a ceremony, but I don't think I would get, like, married again now.
At this point in your life, would you ever want to try and have kids? Getting kind of old there, Brad.
Showing that gray in that beard.
I don't know. The age part doesn't factor into it. I would say probably no. Like, I wouldn't try. If the question's would I try to have kids, the answer's no. I enjoy my independence and my financial situation too much. I know that my own problems I'm just going to project onto some kids, so I'm not going to physically put effort out there to spawn.
And they might also, you know, if it's genetic, then they'd probably have it too, and then you'd have to deal with that.
Although I think I would deal with it better than my parents and my grandparents did. I think I would be more understanding of it, and that aspect of it I think I would be able to deal with better. So I would not try, but at the age I'm at now, if it did happen, I would not be upset about it. I'd be very happy about it. It would be something I'd welcome. The fact that I don't think that in today's age, 36 isn't too old to have kids.
No,
I don't think.
I think a lot of people are having kids more later in
Yeah.
their lives now.
Catherine says she doesn't know about others, but her comments aren't working.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any kind of comments whatsoever. Our thing might be kind of messy.
Do you have your phone on you, Brad?
Yeah.
If you have comments, if you wanted to send them message-wise to Strictly Sickly, I think Brad could read them.
Yeah, right now we're not getting any comments except for one from Hazel saying good evening from the UK, and that was forever ago.
Hazel messed up the whole thing.
Gosh, Hazel.
Jeez.
So yeah, if you wanted to send a comment in, you could message to Strictly Sickly, maybe.
Stevens.
Oh, Stevens came through, so maybe it's just you, Kat. I don't know. I have no clue.
I'm only showing 3 actual comments on the board.
And then somebody said, hey,
Yeah.
we're getting that one. Ooh.
Good job, Brad.
Well, the mute thing's on, so it should have worked.
Oh, is it mine?
I was doing 2, then you were doing 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the next thing was, since you are around people and date people who have...
I love these. Did you notice the mics are scented? I washed them.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Since the people you're around and date have compromised immune systems, is there anything that you do now that you didn't used to do in order to kind of protect them?
Flu shots, but I lie about it to Sarah constantly.
Ooh, child.
She's like, did you get a flu shot? I'm like, no, I never get a flu shot, but I've actually gotten a flu shot every year since I started dating Allie. I got my flu shot last week.
Do you think people in general keep quiet when they're mentally poorly? I hid mine for 40 years before asking to be referred to a psychiatrist by my GP. To me personally, it was an important piece of me, kind of like finding the missing piece of a jigsaw. Personally, I feel so let down as the one I saw was putting me into a box, which they wanted me to be in, instead of one that, along with other bits of my being. Now, 6-7 years later, I still get no help and research my diagnosis and feel there are other bits along with it.
Yeah, we're gonna do an entire episode about mental illness, strictly because we feel that a lot of it's overlooked and
It needs its own
misguided.
episode.
And
I do have a quick comment on it though, if that's okay.
Oh, no, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I do think a lot of people basically suffer with their mental health in silence, because I pretty much did, probably until the age of 32, 31, 32, when I got divorced, and it took me basically having a break to finally come to grips and be more open about that, which is what ultimately got me any kind of help. And the reason that happened is there was actually an incident when I was 17 years old, and I had depression really, really bad. I was having problems. My parents were divorced. My dad was kind of getting towards getting remarried. Some stuff happened, and I told my dad, I said, hey, I broke down. I said, I need to go see a shrink. And he asked why, and I said, well, I'm having problems with depression. I feel angry all the time, and another problem I had is compulsive lying at the time, and it took a lot for me to say that, and he really didn't take it seriously at the time.
That's a big problem.
He kind of like he brushed it off, but he took me to somebody. And the problem is when I went to go see that shrink, that guy, he didn't want to talk about any of the things I wanted to talk about. He really didn't seem to take it seriously. He talked to me like I was a kid.
Well, it sounds like she had a similar problem. Like they put her into a bot, and they diagnosed her with something, and then they just
weren't
sort
really
of
listening.
ignored everything else that was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this doctor did in the very first visit. And then we went out into the waiting room, and he was talking to my dad, and he's like, well, I would tell you everything he said in there, except that he's technically a legal adult at 17, and it turned me off to the whole thing, and I never wanted to talk about it again. And I just kind of suffered, and the only person that knew really anything about it was my wife for a long time. And so I think one of the reasons I stayed with her so long is because she was the only person that knew how fucked up I really was in the head, and she
Still
was
stuck around, and
she was the only person that could deal with it in any kind of capacity for a while. And unfortunately, the capacity she was dealing with it was she was making a lot of excuses for me for other people, so I didn't have to anymore. And it was out of love, but it probably wasn't the best way to fix me at the time. It was a Band-Aid.
Yeah, to answer your question, I do think people do keep quiet until it's almost at a breaking point, and we'll cover that later on our mental health episode, because we're gonna dive deep into that whirlpool.
Yeah.
And Jen on there, I dated her in high school. She knows how screwed up I am too. So,
So what's the hardest part about dating someone with chronic pain?
what is the hardest part?
Is it the trying to fix you and you can't kind of thing?
No.
No?
I'm trying to think of a way to word it that I'm not sleeping on the couch later. The hardest part is not being angry at somebody for something that they can't help. That is honestly the hardest part, because it's natural to feel like, or I'm not an expert. I think it's natural to feel neglected, or to feel like somehow this person is doing this to get out of spending time with you, or for attention or something like that. I mean, even if the logical part of your brain says that is absolutely not true, there's always a part of you that feels that way, and especially with me, and it's kind of a setup question, because I have my own issues, but it's hard not to be mad at somebody for being sick.
Jen just said 9 Inch Nails, and I'm not sure if that has some sort of
cultural
significance
I'll
to
tell you
y'all's
about it
relationship.
later.
Okay.
It does.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, kind of being
I
resentful
I
towards
plagiarized
me.
a 9 Inch Nails song.
Ooh.
Anyway, so but I mean that resentment
I
we've
was
talked
trying to get some. Leave me alone.
we've talked about that on this show before. That resentment's pretty normal, it seems.
Yeah.
In these relationships,
Like, even though you logically know that they're not doing it, some part of you just says,
you push it down, but it is there, and you don't want to admit it's there because it's gonna get blown out. Like, it's, you say, okay, honesty in relationships and communication and things like that. But,
you hold some of that stuff
but if
back.
I look you in the eye and I say, hey, I feel resentment for you right now because you're sick, and it's not fair and it sucks. Like, it still hurts. It's a horrible thing to hear.
Yeah.
I know I'm mentally unhealthy, but when people are like, hey, that's not an excuse for being an asshole, you're still don't just get to go around being fucking angry all the time. It still hurts because I don't think I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's a thing that's there's a difference between what's physically happening and what you feel, and everything is an action and a reaction, and it sucks. And so the hardest part for me is trying to not shut off my emotion, but to kind of like filter through it, because sometimes I'll get mad, or sometimes I'll get frustrated. Sometimes I get depressed about the whole situation. Other times I feel great about it. But that is the hardest thing, is feeling great about it all the time, knowing that in the end it can't end well.
Yeah.
It's pretty finite at a certain point.
Yeah, and that was actually the next question.
Well, I was going to say real quick, as Hazel says, you are truly inspirational and I admire your honesty. In the UK, it's so hard to get help. Some seem to get all the help, and peeps like me have to fight for everything. Love your program, guys. Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Hazel.
It's weird that she says that in the UK, because
I've actually heard that despite them having the NHS and stuff in the UK, is that mental health is even more taboo there than it is here.
That's the word I meant to use.
It's surprising and not surprising. I see our own medical system and our own problems we have here, and it's goddamned impossible to get any kind of treatment here, and mental health is like one of the lowest.
Yeah, low bar.
I mean, we won't even recognize it as part of like some kind of gun control or anything. Like, hey, maybe we should stop giving crazy people guns,
Yeah. You were talking about it gets to a finite point, and one of the questions that we like to ask everybody on here is there a point in the relationship that things get so bad that you decide it's time to walk away?
What's your walk away point?
Well, and I only know this because I've hit my walk away point so many times with people, and it's not always like me walking away, but there's a point at which both people walk away from each other, and it's better to do that than to, I think, like, keep a toxic relationship going. But the walk away point is when it's so bad that you can no longer take care of that person. Like you're literally just there for no other reason than I was there the day before. My walk away point is when I have nothing left to offer. If I'm only with that person because I feel they need me to be there to take care of them, if there's no more love or interest, there's no reason for me to still be there in that capacity of a relationship. I mean, we'll still be friends. I'm still going to take care of that person. I'm still going to love that person. But the walk away point is if we can no longer take care of each other, to the point. And that's not to say, like, if somebody's like paralyzed or sick and I need to take care, I would absolutely do that. There's no point of sickness where you're so sick that I would abandon you or abandon somebody. Mm-hmm. But the walk away point would be like, you don't want me to take, you're so sick you don't want me to take care of you anymore, and it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
Emilio says he just tuned in, but even our military can't get mental health treatment. I know this from hearing from those very close to me. I think that actually, above and beyond just mental health episode, military mental health needs.
Yeah.
Because I've taken a friend to the VA to get mental health care before, and by the time I left there, I was in tears.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not even the one trying to get treatment.
With the VA, you're lucky if you get they'll just throw if they do anything, they're just going to throw Xanax at you. That's pretty much what they do. The mental health care that the VA does is kind of a joke. I've got a lot of friends that are veterans and suffer from, and actually I started talking to them more because I have PTSD, and so not from combat, like, just, I hate saying that, but that is the technical term for some of the stuff that's wrong with me. But it's similar in that it's the same kind of thing, which we never talked about what my illnesses were, because I do have chronic illness.
That's further on,
that's actually coming up.
Because I have I do have a physical chronic illness too.
So, does the chronic illness of your partner ever cause arguments?
Yeah, all the time. It's just it can make it hard to. It can make it hard to plan things. It can make it hard to do things. It can even make it hard even when you're trying to accommodate. Like, if I try to stay totally hands off and be like, okay, we can just do whatever, depending on how you feel. Like when it's me and you, and I'm like, well, we can just do whatever you're feeling up to. You'll try to force yourself to do something that I know you shouldn't be doing. Right, and then that pisses me off, and then I feel guilty all day because I'm pushing you too far, because I know you don't have enough spoons left to go do the thing that I know you want to do, and I'm going to take you to do it because you never say you want to go do anything, so I'm going to try to make you happy and give you the thing that you want, but I know you shouldn't be doing it. I know you should be resting. And so, it causes a lot of arguments because I'm stuck between, I want to make you happy, but I also want to do what's good for you, which can be completely opposite things.
And you brought up spoon, and we mentioned this on a few shows, but the spoon theory is that most people, let's say, activities are spoons. Most people start off the day with 50 spoons, and it takes like 5 spoons to shower and 2 spoons to make a phone call. Chronically ill people, they start off with much fewer spoons. You might only get 10 spoons a day. You might only get 2. So you have to pick and choose activities.
Because a lot of them wear a lot more. Like, for somebody doing the dishes may only take them 1 spoon, but for somebody who's sick, it may take them 8 spoons to do the dishes. So,
and it's random on any given day how many spoons you might have. Yeah. It's not a static number.
Like, I've run out of spoons. I can't do anything. That's spoon theory.
Let's go ahead and go through your list of physical and mental.
Well, I think I already covered my mental. I have is it still called bipolar?
Depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder.
Right, and then I have the early stages of Crohn's disease, and that's with my bowels. It started as a ulcerative colitis, and it was chronic, and that has escalated into the early stages of Crohn's.
Emilio says his brother is an Army field medic veteran. He suffers every day. It hurts to witness the circles he goes through just to try and cope. Yeah,
watching somebody else suffer with something that you know what? It's one thing to watch somebody suffer with like a physical ailment, because like say they have like a hurt leg, they have a hard time walking. You can push them around in their wheelchair, or say they have problems with their arms. You can help them lift things. You can do things to help. You can bring things to them. You can get them out of the house. There's things you can do to help.
But if it's mental
illness, the only thing you can do is the hardest thing to do, and that's listen.
Just sit there and listen to them.
Listening,
don't try to do
everybody says, oh man, if you ever need somebody to talk to, I'll just listen. But no, I can't even do it. Nobody can just listen. Everybody's got the solution. If you tell them what's going on in your head, they're going to tell you. If I tell you what happened to me at work today, it's just going to be natural. You're going to be like, well, why don't you try doing this?
Yeah.
That's not helpful. It isn't helpful. If I would have thought it would have helped, I would have done it.
It's also different. Everybody with mental illness, even if you both have depression, somebody might want you to just sit there and listen to them while they tell you, and then somebody else might actually want you to cheer them up. it just depends on the person and what they have. So yeah, it can be very hard to watch somebody.
And Hazel says over here is about waiting 3 weeks to see a doctor who I feel is the only one who helps me. Mentally ill means we need help now. 3 weeks may be too late. Whereas you break your leg, they x-ray it later, and hopefully 6 weeks later you're better. Pearly heads aren't that easy to fix, or are that easy to fix, nor in the same time frame.
Just real quick, because she's when I first got divorced and I really needed like some counseling, like right fucking now in like a doctor, because doctors wouldn't help me or whatever. There was a website I went to called 7cups.com.
Oh, yeah. I've been to 7 Cups.
And while they're not like professional counselors or anything, it is a website that's
stopgap.
Yeah, and it helped me a lot because it gave me an outlet, and it gave me somebody, and a lot of those people are experienced, you know, and it gave me somebody to talk to that wasn't somebody I knew, that could be objective, they weren't judgmental, and it wasn't face-to-face.
Well, and Hazel says listening is one of the hardest life skills to learn and master.
I don't think anybody masters
Yeah,
that.
we're all still learning.
Talking to somebody else that's got the same issues as you, like depression or whatever, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, this is probably the one person that really understands what you're saying, but it's bad because you will feed off each other's depression, and they will ultimately give you the worst fucking advice.
Well, and all depression is I don't think anyone suffers depression in the same way.
Oh, no,
it's all different.
But I mean, that's the closest you're going to get to somebody understanding.
Yeah. Ooh, where are we? The next question that I have, do you think, since you're with somebody who has chronic pain, physical problems, and they go to the doctor and get a bunch of stuff going on, do you think that your mental illnesses get as much attention or as much treatment as somebody else who has physical?
You mean at the doctor or in the relationship?
Let's do both.
Yeah.
Let's start within the relationship and move to at the doctor.
All the time. But I'm also more open about my mental illness now than I used to be. In my previous relationships, no, because I didn't know the scope of what was wrong. I always knew something was wrong, and I was fine admitting that like something was wrong, but not the level of what was wrong. Like, I never saw myself as somebody that was verbally abusive or somebody that was just angry for no reason.
Speaking of, Amelia says, especially trying to listen to those who can't talk.
Yeah. I never saw myself as that person, like, you know, because I don't condone abuse or anything those are horrible things. But somewhere it flipped, and I realized, I was like, hey, I am verbally abusive. I do have that side of me where I actually need anger management, and I need to quit denying this. Like, it was real hard for me to come to grips with that. And I make it sound like I'm like this horrible monster. I mean, I'm not as bad as like some people. Like, I don't just like beat on people or just, you know, come in the room like, where's my dinner, bitch? But
no, but verbal abuse can be very subtle, and I know I can be verbally abused, especially if I'm having a bad day.
I have triggers. I have triggers, and it took a while to get to the point where I realized like I have triggers. And the thing is like, it's never unprovoked. Like, it's an argument, and it's like a situation where I should stand up for myself, but I get caught up in the situation, and I get unreasonably angry, and I take things too far. So in the past, no, it didn't get a lot of attention because it was something that not only was I like kind of hiding from the world, I wasn't admitting it to myself what it was, but I'm more open about it now, where I talk about it openly on Facebook, and I'm willing to come on this podcast and just blurt it out or whatever, because that has been ultimately the best coping mechanism for it. But because of that, now it does get attention. In the relationship I am now, you know, I can get into an argument and get to that point where I take it too far, but it's recognized that, hey, you know, you need to calm down. You're going too far. I understand, like, you didn't mean that. You know, and if I'm having a really bad day, you know, people compensate for that with me. They're like, no, we understand that you have anxiety and you chill out. So I don't have that problem in the relationship. as far as the doctor, yeah, shit, I'm having that problem now. When I went to the doctor here recently for back pain, like last week, and it took all of like 5 seconds of conversation to come out of there with Ultram muscle relaxers and something to help me sleep at night. But I had to have a 20-minute conversation about, hey, I need to get back on Lexapro. This is a drug I've already taken, and it's proven to help me, at least for a period of time. I say, hey, I want to get back on Lexapro. I had to fill out another form. I had to talk to him 45 minutes about this, that, and the other. And then they didn't even do, like, I can't even get a refill on it without going back for another follow-up appointment. And she wants me to follow up with a psychiatrist and all this, and I didn't feel like it was being taken seriously. Like I get that I came out of there with the drug and they're trying to cover their ass, and they want me to follow up. I understand that. So it was taken seriously to the degree that I got ultimately what I wanted, but I still felt like the way that doctor talked to me, it felt like I was trying to weasel some Xanax out of her, and that wasn't even when you can't even abuse Lexapro.
No.
And I would really like to get some Xanax to go with my Lexapro for those high stress days, but I'm afraid to ask for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid that they're going to treat me like I'm just trying to get some Z-bars out of them. And that's not the case at all, because I don't even like using pill drugs recreationally. The only recreational drugs that I'm even okay with personally, I don't do it because it's illegal, and that's really the only reason, but marijuana would be the only recreational drug I do. I don't like taking any other kind of drugs, so I can't even get it for a legit reason.
Yeah.
And Hazel says, you always get, I know how you feel, blah, 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 I'm more empathetic, and you can only imagine what it's like for the person. And then Jen said, I was exactly like that. I just don't get to talk about it. And now that I'm better at things, people won't believe me. They just want to assume I still have my old behaviors.
Yeah.
I kind of know what she's talking about, just because I want to say we dated for about a year in high school, and my impression of her back then is she was real shy, but being older, I can tell she was, and I'm not trying to out you or make you embarrassed, Jen, but this is just an observation since we're all just talking about this. But one of the reasons me and her broke up is she would never talk. Like, I thought she was mute for the longest time, and anything I wanted to do is like, yeah, if you want to do that, whatever. But it was, she didn't like have her own voice, and I think a lot of that was due to her having some really high anxiety at the time. And like I said, I overcompensated, and I had this like really big personality. Like, I was a dick. And so like I just kind of ran over her through that whole thing. But I mean, we were all kids, so but I'm just saying, I recognize what she's talking about. So I believe you when you say that, sweetie.
And Amelia says, a man needs to feel respected and a woman needs to feel loved, no matter the issue or argument.
That's true.
I'm not sure. I'm weird for a chick, though.
It's give or take. I mean, I think as a human, everybody needs
Loved
to
and
feel loved and respected.
Yeah, I think overall that's a true statement. But Jen said, yes, I go in because I feel like I'm dying. I'm so sick. And they act like you're there for the hydrocodones. I'm not embarrassed. I got violent and my voice emerged.
Yeah, that is true. That kids will do that to you.
So you suffer from your own set of illnesses. How does that factor into your relationship?
It does factor in, but a lot of it, and like I said before, there's a difference between the feeling things and reality. Sometimes it feels like it takes a back seat to my partner's more important illnesses because they are more physical and upfront and in your face.
God, I hate it when people say that.
Well, it's
I know that's how they feel, but man,
it's visible and you can see it. But yeah, it takes a back seat because I might have had a bad day, but you might not know that when I come home.
Yeah.
And you've been throwing up all day, and you've just waited all day for me to come home from working or whatever, and you need me to get something out of the next room for you because you can't fucking get out of bed. So sometimes it can feel like, who gives a fuck if I had a bad day, you know? But I mean, to be fair, you might not have got that chance to even know that. I'm sure if I if I said, hey, I had a really, I get you your thing, and I say, hey, I had a really bad day.
If you say that, do you feel like you get the attention?
I do.
If you say it.
If I say it, I do. The problem is getting those words out. It's my own. It might have a lot to do with my own set, but I think anybody that's really empathetic at all would shut up at that point. Nobody would. Would you go up to a cancer patient who's doing chemo, dying or whatever, and be like,
something?
man, I threw up a lot today?
No, and that's why I don't like talk about being sick, because someone always has it worse.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. But you know what? And I think that's programming that our parents put in our... That's something I always heard growing up. Not even just from my own parents, from my grandparents, from
There's
other
children
people's parents.
starving in China.
On fucking TV. It's somebody's always got it worse. But, it wasn't until the past 5 years where it finally like sunk into my head is, hey, it's all relative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody's always got it worse, but it doesn't matter. It's relative to you. Nobody's got it worse than you have it in your life right now. And it's valid for you to be angry. You're allowed to be angry about that.
Emilio says, when me and my wife first got married, we got a DVD set called Love and Respect. Can't remember who made it, but we watched it every year for the first week following our anniversary. Jen Edge said, I don't need the love, just the compromise.
Yeah.
See, and for me in a relationship, the thing I need most is communication.
Yeah, communication.
I think it's very specific to everybody, but I guess respect is more of a guy thing. I think it might be.
It's something I struggle if I feel like somebody doesn't respect me, or particularly if I think somebody thinks I'm stupid.
Yeah, that's my thing, is that as soon as somebody thinks that I'm stupid, or they say something along those lines, then I don't want to be involved with that person anymore. I guess that is respect in a way, because you're not respecting my intelligence. Or
Yeah. And Hazel says, mental poorly is a lonely world. I would love even an hour respite from my head, but it never hears me. Yeah. And say me and Kristen are saving it for the other show, but everyone in this group does have mental health issues, and it is just the worst because you never get a single damn second of peace.
Yeah, at least with the physical stuff, you might be able to get a minute.
It's also one of the main reasons that I think people end up with really bad addictions, because they're looking for some kind of escape from that, and that's also probably the other hard part about some of the relationships I've been in, because some of the people I've dated have also had addiction, which is really hard, because that's like any illness. That's the top one that you can be angry at somebody for having, is addiction, because it's not seen as a disease. And even if you believe it's a disease, and you know it's a disease, and you think it is, you still catch yourself being angry when somebody falls into habits like that. It just pisses you off, and then you don't want to help them anymore. Like, it's hard to be empathetic towards somebody that you feel is doing something to themselves.
See, I'm on the other side of that with the addiction thing. I'm like, I know that whatever they're trying to escape from is probably worse than what they're going toward.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's the reality of it, and I totally get that. Like, I understand wholeheartedly the addiction thing. Mm-hmm. It's hard to empathize with, because I've never been addicted to anything other than eating. Eating is my addiction.
Next two on you, Kristen.
Okay. So whenever you go with her to the doctor and you see the way that she's treated versus the way that you're treated in the hospital, how different is that? And I know we have to take into account the fact that you're treated shitty for a man having mental health.
No. Okay, so yeah, I get treated kind of shitty for the mental health stuff. Mm-hmm. As far as just going to the doctor, I'm treated like a king. I have white male privilege coming out of both ears. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just used that for my back pain. I said I talked to him 5 minutes, got opiates, and I really didn't even have to prove that my back really was hurting, and it's got to be hurting pretty bad for me to go ask for painkillers, because I'm that kind of person, because I don't mind the painkillers so much. I hate the after effects. Like, the day after I stopped taking, or actually the day after I stopped taking the Ultram, I had a migraine all day, and that's worse than the fucking back pain.
Yeah.
It took me all of 5 minutes, and they're just like, here, there's that, So, yeah, it's a staggering difference between the way they treat you, the way they treat Sarah, Allie, Bethany, anybody I've ever been to the doctor with. And, like, I've been to the doctor with Mike, is, like, his advocate, because he's also got, like, some anxiety stuff, too. He's like, hey, man, I have a hard time talking to the doctor. Okay, I'll go with you. Because it's easier to advocate for somebody else than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of everybody's advocate in that, because I understand it. But he went in for his ankle, and they were just like, yeah, here's some Lyrica, here's some painkillers, there you go. It's night and day, the way they treat women and men. Like, it's very, very sexist. And I can't remember if it was you or Allie where we went to the doctor. I think all three of us went or something. They were like, oh, those are lady problems. I don't know anything about lady problems.
I don't know nothing about that woman stuff.
Yeah, it was like, do you know which way the plumbing goes? Like, they were just, like, completely hands off with it. But I've been on plenty of those trips. Yeah.
Well, that answers part of the question. We were going to say, is there anything you do to specially advocate for her when you go to the doctor?
Yeah, I act like a fucking man, because well, I use it to my. I mean, I hate to say that, but that might be the only advantage I have. Yeah, it's super sexist, but I use it to my advantage to, like, if I went to the doctor with you, I've been to the doctor tons of times with Sarah now.
Use your male privilege for good.
Yeah, to give Steven, because it's more, because he, stays watches the kid. We trade off sometimes when she's got to go to the doctor. I would go with you too, or anybody else, but, I think Sarah can vouch for me, but when they start, kind of like doing the double talking or whatever, I'll just start asking a bunch of fucking questions and making them have to answer it. Mm-hmm. And I don't let them dance around it, because I'm not a doctor, but I am knowledgeable, and I can tell when they're bullshitting.
Yeah.
And I'll make them give me the technical answer. And then I'll suggest different treatments. And so, well, why aren't we doing this? What about this? Blah, blah, blah. And if they say that's not the treatment you need to go for because of this X, Y, and Z, that's fine. But I'm going to bring up all the different things
to make sure that they're not just dismissing it outright.
Right, yeah. And so, I go in there with a penis. That's not fair. Like,
better.
Well, that sucks, because that's not something, like, that you can do. Yeah. Like, I don't have any advice for, as a woman, going in by yourself. How can I advocate for myself? I don't know. I'm using the advantage that I'm a man.
Yeah, because even bringing another woman for advocacy, sometimes they just ignore both of you.
Yeah.
It helps, but yeah, they look at you like you're a couple of babbling bitches.
Yeah,
and it's not fair.
So, let's play the game we played last round. How well do you know the illnesses of your current and past partners?
My list is longer than everybody else's.
Okay, so let's start with Bethany. We'll just do 3.
Okay, well, she was never diagnosed with anything, but we're going to say she had PCOS, endometriosis, severe depression, anxiety, and PTSD after family deaths.
Allie.
Allie, she has PCOS, she has fibromyalgia, she has her gallbladder exploded one time, her appendix ruptured on her, she has hormonal imbalances, and she's batshit crazy.
Endometriosis, you missed that one.
Oh, I thought that's part of the PCOS. Come on.
Okay, last one.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's see. You have CRPS, you have endometriosis, you have PCOS, you have endocarditis, you have...
endocarditis.
You had endocarditis, you have gastrophoresis, you have fibromyalgia, you have rheumatoid arthritis, you have an undiagnosed, what do you call it, autoimmune disorder.
Apparently now I have a thyroid problem.
You now have a thyroid
We're
problem.
Just gonna write a book with
you
all
also
of your
have
in it.
insomnia and this weird lump thing on your foot and a badly tattooed tiger.
Shut up about my tiger. Depression and anxiety. I guess I would throw those in there. Although I think those are more due to...
I think it's anger now that I've answered the question.
How has any of your partner's experiences or illnesses changed your view or outlook on the medical field? And I already know your answer on this one, but
Oh yeah, absolutely. You and Allie both. And I mean, you're not my partner, but to some degree, you too. But just this particular group of people has completely flipped my view on everything, really. Not that I was a hardcore Republican before. Like I've always been middle of the road, moderate. But my views on the medical system were completely different. They were more towards the Republican side before. But that's because I bought into the bullshit about waiting times on
Canadian healthcare.
Canadian healthcare and things like that. You know, it's like, oh, the people are coming to America to get their.
Meanwhile, I still have to wait 8 months to see a specialist.
And what I found out after talking to people that lived in these other places, instead of just listening to what was being fed to me, is there are some waiting times for some things, but nothing like what we have. Like, we actually have waiting times because we get put on lists because we can't afford to go in the first place.
Yeah.
It's no different in that aspect, except that you can actually be seen for things and you're not going to go bankrupt because of it.
No.
My views did totally change to where I totally want socialized I'm not a socialist. But as far as
dirty socialist,
I'm not a full blown. I'm socialist on some things, medicine being one of them. I would gladly pay higher taxes to have medical help for everybody, and I think people forget that if we you would pay some higher taxes for that, but I think people forget that you wouldn't be paying out of pocket for insurance or like there's a lot of those.
Plus how they overcharge people for the people who can't pay here.
It would be a lot different. Like, you would be spending a little bit more money in one place, but you'd be spending a lot less money in another.
And in a way, it would also contribute to society anyway, because if you are paying more for people to have access to healthcare, it's possible that people who are currently sick could get well enough to start working again
and be productive. That's the thing. That's what's actually happened in other countries where they found a way to switch from privatized healthcare to socialized healthcare, is their population got healthy enough to be productive.
Yeah.
And before we move on to the next section, I was going to say, Emilio, I'm going to look up those DVDs. And Hazel says, I feel music is an important medication for my mental and physical well-being and my guilty pleasure. My fur baby helps me. My days and nights feel me.
Yeah, I can't get by without my fur babies.
Yeah,
they keep me sane.
I need my
If you want my two cats, you can have them because they contribute to my mental illness.
I need my cats and my music. And music is one of the few things that I feel actually helps my pain, like my physical pain level.
Yeah. And physical contact now. You used to not like physical contact, and that's something that's changed for you in the past 3-4 years.
I find it helpful to be like I still don't want people I don't know freaking touching me, but like a hug from somebody can make me feel better than, sitting there by myself being all stoic and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the next question is primarily about your mental health stuff, and it's just a few because we were going to do the full episode on it. So
you're not going to ask about my junk, right?
Kristen, here, you get the first two questions.
Okay.
They're about my junk.
What are your official formal diagnoses?
Oh, okay.
We
if it's still called bipolar disorder, it used to be called bipolar disorder. I think it's called something else now.
I don't know.
But I have depression, anxiety, and PTSD. I had an episode in my life, and just kind of like everything broke after that.
And what kind of symptoms do you have to deal with all the time off of all of these?
I think you missed one.
Did I?
Yeah. Have you always...
It's the one about my junk.
Have you always had symptoms, or did they manifest at puberty or even later in life? Because I know a lot of mental health issues manifest at puberty. As I have a pubescent daughter, I'm noticing this.
Well, man, I don't know. Pre-puberty, what I can remember, I was always shy and quiet. I guess that could have been anxiety, but I don't ever really remember feeling anxious about anything. Like, that's not part of my memory structure from there.
Socially awkward or something?
I want to say like my depression and anxiety probably started like around 13 or 14. So probably most of it like really kicked up around puberty, but there might have been some early signs before that, but you know, I didn't get in a lot of trouble growing up. You know, I wasn't the hellion in my family. Like I didn't do a whole lot of things to get in trouble. Of course, my parents were also kind of lax. You know, I was allowed to like draw on the walls and stuff like that. You know, they encouraged like creativity and things
I've
like
just
that,
given
so.
up on trying to stop my kids from drawing on the walls.
Yeah, your kids are a little bit extreme.
Oh, but go ahead with the next one. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, it's fine. I was just asking what symptoms you have to deal with because of your mental health illness.
About 4 or 5 years ago, the main symptom I have to deal with now is random panic attacks. They used to be a lot worse than they are now. But I would get constriction like in my chest. I couldn't think logically. Like it was less like.
I think I've seen you have one.
I think you saw my last massive one actually, and I didn't like I knew what they were, but I didn't understand it because I'd always heard it described as like feeling like you're having a heart attack, and I felt like I was just in sheer panic, like my chest would constrict, but it didn't feel like a heart attack per se. I still have anxiety attacks, but it's more like just like a feeling of dread that I get, like something really bad's about to happen, and it's kind of debilitating at some point.
Thank you, Emilio.
What?
Oh, he said, by the way, that angle on you is gorgeous. I'm happily married, so don't take that the wrong way. No worries.
So that would be the big one. The other one is the like not wanting to get out of bed, and that goes back to me growing up about how I felt when I was a kid. You know, because I understand it now. Because there's days where it's like I'll call into work and I'll make something up. I'm like, I've got the flu because I know they're not going to deal with, like, I just can't get out of bed. Like, I've done it before.
If only mental health issues were a reason to call into work.
Right.
I've seen some companies where they'll give people mental health days.
They need to more.
They do.
That's a big one. Mostly it's the panic attacks. If they come on real sudden because, like, it's not just like there's certain triggers that always make a panic. Like, I can deal with big crowds, but sometimes I can't deal with that big crowd. Mm-hmm. And I don't know until I'm in it. And then, like, I completely ruined our trip to Dragon Con with that crap. Normally,
I wouldn't say you completely ruined it.
It was pretty close at certain points, but that was like a panic attack that lasted for 2 whole days before I finally just, like, chilled out enough to just shut my mouth. But I was a fucking miserable wreck that whole time because normally things like that don't bother me at all.
I feel more bad that your trip was ruined than anyone else's.
I was pretty mean and I was cruel to everybody on there, but it's like I wasn't even in my right mind for half of that, and I feel really shitty about it. But you know, and that's probably why I'm not going back, because if it had been something local, like one of the Fort Worth conventions, if I'm feeling bad, I can leave. I can
go home.
I can just go home
instead of being stuck in freaking Atlanta.
I was stuck in Atlanta, and like I didn't even know my way back to the hotel because we'd taken the subway route. So like I'm just like stuck there, and I think the snapping point even for you was when like I was sitting there and I had green hair at the time, and there was some kid trying to talk to me over here.
I did freak out at you.
Yeah,
sorry.
And like I wasn't trying to, but I turned over my shoulder and I said something really snotty, like really loud, not even like realizing it really, and like I would try to like walk off and remove myself from the situation, but that was just pissing everybody else off.
Because we did that thing where we all wanted to fix it,
right? And so it was just this really toxic situation. So those kind of things, yeah, those are mentally, those are the things that I deal with, and there is physical illness that comes with the mental illness. Like it will make me sick to my stomach. It will give me debilitating migraines. It will make
physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
It'll make I don't really get the achiness so much, but I do get like the fatigue, like really bad. Like I'll get like sleepy.
That's what happens. I sleep a lot when I'm depressed.
And sometimes I think like getting too much sleep triggers my depression. Sometimes my depression makes me want to sleep too much.
It's just a circle of sleep and depression.
So does it wear on your relationship, both people being sick?
No, does it? Yeah. Yeah, I think it does. I mean, there's no perfect relationship, but yeah, it's gonna wear both people down. But it's how you deal with that wear. Do you accept that wear, and you're okay with it, and you just recognize it for what it is, and you just keep being together and doing the right thing and making up for it? Or
I think the communication is very helpful in that aspect.
With us, I think we communicate really well. I communicate with you better than I have in the past with anybody else. But it's really rough because communication is the hardest thing for me to do, because I can communicate with complete strangers easier than I can with somebody that I know intimately.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to talk to you guys on this podcast, or to post something on my Facebook page, or to get up in front of an audience. It's easier to talk to all of y'all than it is to talk to any one of y'all about something that is very real to me that I'm feeling at the time. And I overthink things to the point that I'll over-explain, like I'm doing right now, where I'm saying something in a different way because I think you're too stupid to understand what I'm saying, and I don't...
Emilio asks, is Strictly Sickly on an RSS podcast feed? This is the first time I tuned in, and I'm enjoying it, but it runs a bit too late for my schedule.
It isn't yet, but we're in the process of setting that up. Probably once we get around 10 episodes, we'll get it going.
Yeah, we're only on episode 7, and I think I'm just now setting up a YouTube page for it.
Yeah,
so,
we'll get it going soon, and it'll be something you can get on iTunes.
But for now, you can always rewatch everything on Facebook.
Yeah, this stays on Facebook, and I'll make sure when we do get that set up to let you know, and I appreciate you watching.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it,
too.
What else y'all got?
Do you find it more difficult to be supportive and sympathetic towards your significant other when you're having a episode? Oh, I was going to say one thing to Amelia real quick. This isn't always the time slot in which we have this podcast either. Like next week we'll be doing one at 1 p.m. So look at the Facebook page for times.
Yeah, I'll be posting the events for the schedule so that everybody knows when to tune in.
Yeah, so that way if there is one you can tune in for, then yeah. Okay, sorry.
What was the question?
Do you find it harder to be sympathetic when
you're having a bad time? Is it harder for you to be supportive and sympathetic?
That's barely a question. Of course it is. But sometimes, I don't know, I guess there's exceptions to that rule, because sometimes I'll be feeling really shitty, and then, you, Allie, Kristen, anybody I'm friends with is like, hey, I'm feeling really shitty, and I'm like, hey, I know where you're at, man, and so, yeah, I guess sometimes it can make it easier, but if I'm having a really hard time, and you're coming at me with a whole bunch of shit I just don't really think is important right now, it's gonna take every ounce of my effort to pretend to care.
Yeah, and not be a dick about it.
Well, I mean, and I just said that in the most dickish way possible, but it's kind of the blunt truth.
Yeah,
that's what the podcast is for.
This is all about truth.
I'm sleeping on the couch tonight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the medical field, this is also kind of a duh question, but do you think that whenever you go to the doctor with your mental health problems, and she goes to the doctor with her physical health, do you think one is more difficult than the other to have actually treated seriously and actually get treatment for, or do you think they're about the same?
Especially because you're a man with mental health.
Yeah.
So man with mental health versus female with chronic physical health.
It depends on the physical ailment. If it's something that can visually be seen, or if it's something that can show up on a test, like if they can find it in your blood, or like when you had the infection in your arm. Oh, hey, she's got an infection. She's got a fever, blah, blah, blah. No, I find it infinitely easier to get
cats
treatment that way. They're out there fighting God.
Mm-hmm.
But the mental stuff is always, it's like, well, are they lying just to get Xanax, you know. But if she's complaining about pain, especially the stomach, if you're complaining about pain in your stomach, you're going to be treated like a drug seeker, whether you are or not.
I mean, having worked in the medical profession, that's what 90% of people come with.
Because there's nothing you can do to confirm it. There's nothing you can X-ray somebody's stomach; it doesn't show anything. You can CT somebody's stomach,
and in
doesn't
that
show
case,
anything. You can scope somebody's stomach and still not see anything.
And in that case, they're actually less likely to give pain meds sometimes because it can cover up, say, an appendix rupture. If they've just loaded you up with Dilaudid due to stomach pain, they might overlook something. And I think that's something a lot of people don't get. Is a lot of times they refuse pain meds in stomach conditions because they could F you over.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually just good at advocating for you or if I'm just a lucky charm. But I know both of you have. But I know you've been screwed over at the ER so many times. But every time it's gotten bad enough where I take you, they always take really good care of you.
Maybe you are a lucky charm. Come with me on my next one.
If you want
I
me
also
to, I
think
will.
it's because if it's at the point where you're forcing me to go, something's probably really gone wrong.
Well, I mean, the epic one was the blood clot because she was like, I'm not going. Me and her husband were both like, hey, you're fucking going. Steven's like, hey, take her. And I'm like, okay.
And then,
And then we stuffed her in a car. Well, and they were just about ready to dismiss her. They were getting ready to say, well, we don't really know what's wrong, and the doctor pulled me off to the side and he's like, I think a lot of this is due to the she was on Oxycontin at the time.
I'm on Percocet. It's the same thing. It's just not time release.
He's like, I really think this is just a side effect of the Percocet because it's like part of withdrawal or whatever. And I was like, look, I'm around her a lot. She's taking the normal amount or whatever, and I've seen her actually go through it, like when she misses or whatever. And I don't think this is that. I was like, if this was that, I wouldn't be so worried about it. But this has been like an ongoing issue. And he's like, okay, well, let me run a couple other things because it's very unlikely, but it could be a blood clot, blah, blah, blah. And then they ran whatever it was.
D-dimer.
Yeah, the D-dimer. And he was like, yeah, this really could be a blood clot. He's like, I'm glad I ran this. And that's when they transferred you.
Yeah.
So.
And then I'm going to skip the next two questions because we pretty much already asked them. But what do you do for self-care?
I cry in the shower.
That's a good plan.
Like a man. Well, recently I've got back on Lexapro, which helps with the anxiety portion. And if I can manage the anxiety portion of my mental stuff, the depression stuff isn't that bad. But Lexapro also kind of treats depression, but it's more for the anxiety, so it helps with that.
Emilio says, I suffer from chronic back pain, but I work in the construction industry. I've been trying for years to get pain meds, but just recently realized chiropractic work helps more than any medication. Sometimes people overlook simple solutions for quick fixes.
I'm on the fence about chiropractics. I mean, it can help, and it can also make things a lot worse.
I'm on the fence about it because when my mom broke her back, she went to a chiropractor. They did an x-ray, and they went ahead and messed with her, and it made it worse.
Yeah.
And, man, if I thought a chiropractor could help, the problem is my chronic pain's in my hand.
Yeah.
But if I had really bad back pain, I can't say I wouldn't try a chiropractor.
So, and I was telling you about this the other day, but the doctor I had growing up, Dr. Merrill, was a regular MD,
yeah.
but he was also apparently a chiropractor, and I thought that was just part of normal everyday medicine because like by the time I got like 13 or 14, I started going in for like physicals for football and stuff. He'd do like adjustments on my back and shit. I thought that was just like a real thing. Mm-hmm. And apparently, no, he practices voodoo on the side of it.
It's two different schools.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to be funny. Thanks for ruining it.
Oh, you're always funny,
but he did adjustments on me, and it never hurt. It felt good, but it never. It was like going and getting a massage for me. It's temporary. It feels great or whatever.
Pain meds. I mean,
yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
It is true, and I guess and ultimately, if it does actually fix your pain,
do it. Good for you,
do it because it is better than putting drugs in your body.
I don't care if it's huffing essential oils. If it helps you, freaking do it.
Yeah. So that's what I do for the mental stuff. For the Crohn's, I actually don't do anything at all because there is pretty much nothing
Besides prednisone, besides the steroid.
Well, it's so early in it that they don't want to treat it anyway. Because they said I guess it can go into remission or whatever, and it's been in remission for a little while.
And the treatments can be worse than the...
Yeah, and so
seems to be
I've just kind of dealt with it.
There's a lot of things where the treatment can be way worse than
well,
the
that's
actual
that's
disease.
why I don't treat my RA yet.
Yeah.
It's because the treatments are so much worse, and I don't have it bad enough yet
Yeah.
for... But, okay, last question to wrap this up. What do you want people to understand the most about your mental health issues?
That I don't always have, even though I'm acutely aware of them, and even though I'm very open about it, it's not something I always have control over. And I don't want anybody's sympathy on it. I just want understanding that when things are going wrong, or I'm saying the wrong thing, or when I get online and I say my life is falling apart and it doesn't seem that bad to you, that's because you're looking at it with a healthy brain. And I think the most important thing that I want people to understand is when I say these things out loud, I'm saying them for my own benefit. I'm not trying to get sympathy from you. I'm not trying to get advice,
solutions, or
I don't need any of that.
You just need to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to say it, and I need to say it in a public place, because I can just say it out loud in this room to myself, but it does me absolutely no good. What makes me feel better is to say it in front of everybody and get it out there, and have that honesty. But the other reason I do it is because there's other people like the nice lady Hazel that was talking earlier, that people need to know they're not the only one having these thoughts. It is a completely irrational, horrible thought to have that you might want to put a gun in your mouth because you lost your driver, or something benign. But you're not the only person having that thought. Somebody else is having that thought. And even though I'm having that thought, it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. But I need somebody to know that that thought is in my head.
Yeah.
And it's important for people to know that they're not the only one having that thought. So just because you see me posting about how bad my life is on my page, or how angry I am at this stupid thing or whatever, that's not necessarily indicative of how I actually think about the world. That's how I think about it at that point in time, and that's with an unhealthy brain.
And I think that's the point, pretty much the whole point of this podcast, is to kind of show people that you're not alone out there.
Yeah.
Some other person is feeling the same thing as you, and we're just kind of here for support and understanding. And
I'll read off Emilio's last two comments before we wrap up. He said, I even tried marijuana, but it just makes me slouch more, and my back might hurt my back even more. Marijuana I've tried for a lot of my chronic conditions, and it's done nothing but make them worse.
Yeah, I
know it helps a lot of people.
I advocate for marijuana is, something that people should try before they
knock it.
It should be legal so they can try it before they get to stuff that's like an addictive substance, because for a lot of people it works. I don't advocate for it as like the silver bullet sort of thing.
It's not going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not the panacea of meds.
Yeah, that's what I get tired with all the posts. Like, oh, look at all these things that marijuana cures. And it's like, it does. It helps with a lot of things, and it's not nearly as harmful as a lot of people think it is. It really shouldn't be illegal for people who are under 18 years of age or have a prescription for it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fix everything.
Yeah, like Brittany says she uses the CBD oil for her endometriosis, and it helps her a lot. And yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, I'm glad it helps you.
Kratom is another good. I know it didn't work for you,
but it works for a lot of people.
But the Kratom actually helped. Oh, I don't know if they have it in the UK, but that actually helped with my depression some. Depression, anxiety. Hazel, if you have access to Kratom,
try it.
It's pretty it's not like a magic pill, but it is worth trying. It does relax you and kind of ease your brain a little bit, and it'll help you sleep too if you have some sleep stuff.
And Emilio said that mental health issues is not just mentally, it can be a physical imbalance that actually causes severe issues with it. It's a chemical. For most people, it's a brain imbalance.
Yeah.
Most people say just get over it, but it's physically
Yeah.
impossible when your brain is not working right. You cannot just get over it.
I produce the wrong chemicals. That's why Lexapro actually does help me.
Yeah, I hate it when people say that. Just get over it. You can't just get over.
Yeah,
that's one of the
something being
things
wrong
on
with
the
you.
mental health episode we're gonna do. The people who are just like, it's all in your head.
Well, of course,
Well,
it's
of
in your
course it's in
brain.
my
It's in your brain.
Counseling and
Oh,
psychiatry never did anything for me.
Brittany,
Yeah.
it's called Kratom, Kratom, I believe, Kratom, or it's Kratam. But it's not an opiate, but it's an opiate-like medication that helps with pain and mental health issues.
Hopefully, if it's legal here or whatever, I would like to try it because it sounds like it might. It's worth a try.
And
Why
Jen
not?
The
says that-
CBD.
the kratom.
Kratom's legal. You can
Okay.
get it for like $30.
And
down
Jen
the
says
road.
now that she smokes, she doesn't get violent anymore. So
Yeah.
and we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode because it has run a pretty long time, and we appreciate y'all all listening. But we are gonna do another episode on mental health care and the kratom. No, you don't need a prescription. Basically,
you can get
go
it
to
at a head shop.
You go to a head shop, or you can order it online.
Yeah.
That's like having a broken leg and or arm and someone telling you to get over it. I tried to walk off a broken leg once.
Doesn't
and
work.
It did
You worked an entire day on a broken leg.
Yeah, and it did nothing
Came
to
home
help.
and then I tried to rub out the cramp.
Yeah, I had a broken leg. I tried to walk it off, and then you tried to rub it to fix it, and it just turned into a cluster. So, no, we want people to understand that you can't just get over these things.
Yeah.
It's not like someone who just had a bad day. There's something wrong with your brain, and it's okay to have these problems. They need to be talked about more, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully help people see that they're less alone. But we appreciate everyone that watched. Do y'all have anything else to say?
Tune in for the next episode. And
No, just be sure to hit the bumper when you leave.
And thanks for being on, Brad, and for being so honest.
Yeah, my mom was watching, so I kind of regret some of the stuff I said.
And the next episode is going to be on autism. We're going to have an interview on Wednesday. And sorry, no, is it Wednesday at
1 p.m.
6 p.m. I believe actually Wednesday at 6 p.m. and then the week after that is the one at 1 p.m. So yeah, Wednesday at 6 p.m. will be our next episode, and
You're interviewing somebody for that, right?
Yeah.
John's
going to be
Okay.
for an episode on autism. Thank y'all all for watching. I hope y'all have a good night.
Bye.
Oh, you didn't hit the bumper.
What bumper? Oh,
The closing bumper.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna go back to the.
Sorry.
It's fine. You killed it.
Kratom is awesome.
Hit stop streaming on